Good afternoon again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and yes, we're getting back to our Medicaid series. But before we do that, brief disclaimer. Throughout the entirety of this Medicaid series, everything that we go over, you will find the sources to all the information linked right there in the description box with some corresponding labels. So if you would like to deep dive on this subject on your own, or perhaps you would just like to kind of have a good idea where you can look at things on your own time because you would like to debate on the facts, you're definitely able to do so. Trigger warnings. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason. I do use profanity, and some of the topics we cover, like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center, for example, are definitely dark. So, if you have a child that is 16 and younger and they watch this channel, parental supervision is very much advised. Political disclaimer. If you are gung-ho MAGA or gung-ho left, wherever you sit. More than likely, I do not. After having worked for so many years with so many politicians, my views on both parties, let's just say they are very cynical and jaded, alright? So what that generally means is that throughout this series or one of the others, I'm probably going to be saying something that may offend you. If you are unable to handle that like an adult and be willing to debate on the facts in regards to the things that you disagree with, but instead cope by using the ridiculous comeback of Trump derangement syndrome as though it's an answer of some kind, the comment will be deleted. You will be blocked from the channel. I don't want to deal with someone who can't figure out how to have a logical argument, and so they automatically revert to name calling. Number two, if you come in here and start mentioning, well, but what about, shouldn't your family be helping you with that? First of all, you know absolutely nothing in regards to the cost of medical care out of pocket without insurance. But let me give you a clue. I'm going ahead and embarrassing myself here and taking it on the shoulder for my ego and my own vanity. But let me just give you an example here. I have told you guys before previously that up here, my front teeth in particular, that due to severe acid reflux disease that I've had at least since I was in middle school, the bones in these front teeth here are slowly being eaten and melted away. Not just them. Those are just simply the most easily available to give you visualization of what that looks like. Looks awful and painful, doesn't it? It is. But you see, although I do have dental, the type of dental that I have, it's extremely difficult to find somebody who actually takes it. And even when they do, it would only cover about a couple $1,000s of all the work that I need done in order to restore my mouth, because it's not just that. Due to acid, I've had gum tissue that has been eaten away, and other teeth with issues that are slowly starting to get to the point of being melted down too. Out-of-pocket cost to cover that with a local dentist here Instead of going on the absolute massive hunt to find anybody within a 50-mile radius that actually takes my insurance, out-of-pocket cost $14,000. $14,000 for dental work. Okay? Now, we are doing relatively well financially. But it's not the kind of doing well financially where I can just randomly pull out $14,000 out of my rectum. Nor is that something that my mom just has right there handy, where she could just go and take me to the doctor's office and take care of it herself. Okay? That's just practical dental. That's not getting into the cost of what my actual medical care is. How much I would pay for Paxil out of pocket? $500. $500 for a 30-month supply. My propanol? $200. So, $700 right there just in medications. Each visit to going to my mental health place, now they do allow a certain level of working for individuals who don't have insurance, but that would be looking at a visit costing each pop about around $174 each time. I go about once every 2 months, unless something has happened. Okay? So, when you ask dumb questions like, well, why doesn't your family help you? Why do my taxpayers have to pay for it? Wonder no more. Medicine is expensive. In fact, America has medicine more expensive than pretty much everywhere else in the developed world. It's not something that's just so easily paid out of pocket by family members. So maybe we think about that before opening your mouth, please. Sorry. I know that went a little bit longer than I anticipated, but good God, I'm tired of dealing with it, with these holier-than-thou people. Well, you're just living it high off the hog. If you've never lived on a limited income with Medicaid and food stamps before in your life, for the love of God, do not comment on what it's like to have to live that life, because I promise you, it's not constant nightly caviar. Okay? Alright, now, where we're going into today is an area where we left off last week. In particular, the reapplication after benefits are discontinued for failure to provide documentation of citizenship. Why? Because the government takes forever to do anything, especially state government. As a person who has worked in a state government job, I feel like I have a special authority, especially in this particular area, to tell you the government takes forever to do anything, including deciding to agree to create my job position with the state back in the day, but not actually creating the job opening until 3 years later, just to give you a kind of timetable of how the government moves. So, we're going to go ahead and go through this here. Alright, And it says an individual can reapply for MoHealthNet program. Remember, we're using Missouri as the example here. Most states have very similar things after being closed for not providing verification. However, the application cannot be approved unless verification of citizenship is provided. If verification of citizenship is not provided within the normal application processing timeframes, the application is rejected at the end of the application period. The individual is not allowed an additional 90 days to provide verification of citizenship when the individual has previously been allowed 90 days to provide documentation. When an individual who has previously been allowed 90 days to provide requested verification of citizenship reapplies for benefits, the eligibility specialist should enter pinned in the citizenship document field and leave the verification field blank on the citizenship verification screen. If citizenship documentation is not provided by the end of the application period, the system automatically rejects the application for failure to provide documentation of citizenship. So they kind of provide an example here. We'll go through it here real quick. And we'll also take a look at alien status. All right, so here's our example. Ms. Smith applies for MoHealthNet for families, NHF for herself and for her 3 children. Ms. Smith does not have citizenship documentation for herself or her 3 children. Ms. Smith is given a request for information verification code in the VER field on the Citizenship Verification FMAX or CITVERF screen in the FAMAS, and the FA 325 request for information is sent to Ms. Smith requesting verification citizenship. Ms. Smith fails to provide the requested information and does not contact the eligibility specialist claiming a good faith effort in obtaining the citizenship verification. FEMA sends adverse action notice. When adverse action notice expires, the MoHealthNet for Families case closes. An action notice is sent to Ms. Smith. On 12/23/10, Ms. Smith reapplies for herself and 3 children. Ms. Smith does not provide verification of citizenship for herself or her 3 children. The eligibility specialist enters pinned in the citizen document field and leaves the verification field blank on the citizen verification screen in FAMAS. Ms. Smith's application will pinned case is not approved 30 days, allowing her an additional 30 days to provide for citizenship verification. If she fails to provide it that second time, her application gets rejected. I mention this and how that works because, again, government works at a snail's pace, and sometimes when they mail out documentation for you that you have to fill out, it may actually arrive after the deadline. They're the government. So it's good to kind of know what they do in regards to that, if maybe they receive that information later on after the original time period had lapsed when they were supposed to provide that information. All right, to alien status. But before I do, I want to make a comment about that, because if you look at it here, even from this point of view, you have to provide that documentation. You don't have that documentation, you do not get a part of the program. So once again, another example of how our tax dollars are not being accessed by anyone that's illegal, because the laws are already in place. No ID, no verification, no benefits for you. The laws are already there. We are dealing with one of the most incompetent administrations I've ever seen in my existence. And I lived through all 8 years of W. Now I know, inevitably, W was the one who started tipping the dominoes that led to this complete and utter train wreck. But that's no consolation. It just makes me depressed. The majority of the people who put Trump in office survived 8 years of W. You think you would have learned by now. You don't elect the stupid ones. And considering what we're dealing with here, Trump makes Bush look like an absolutely elegant, sophisticated speaker with actual charisma in comparison. Please, folks, think on that for a minute. I could at least sort of make out what Bush was trying to say. For Trump, I kind of sometimes need a translator. Alright, moving on before I make anybody else mad. What else is new? Alien status. Whenever possible, obtain a copy of an I-94 or other United States Citizenship and Immigration Services document for all aliens in the household for whom assistance is requested. If alien does provide a requested documentation, verify the documentation with USCIS using their system, of course. We're not going to go over that because we don't really need it. That's more for the people who handle the paperwork. You poor souls. You deserve a trophy, a big one, and like an awesome banquet that just has all the goodies. Just saying, you don't get enough appreciation. Okay. If applicant presents an expired USCIS document or is unable to present any documentation of his or her immigrant status, but alien registration number is known, accept the applicant's statement, use the USCIS SAVE system to verify their status. So even if they provide that number, the person that is there to do intake for eligibility still need something that can verify your status. You can't just make something up and say, oh, I don't have documentation, but I have this number here. And if nothing pops up for that number, they're not given the benefit of the doubt. It's literally ID or leave and don't come back until you have one. Again, how easy is it to defraud the system again? I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But let's be honest here. It is not being done by the majority of the folks that are on Medicaid. Okay? Alright. Citizenship alien status for temporary assistance. Let's get a better idea on this too, because I've heard a few Republicans speak in regards to this. You remember, right? The whole, they're giving them cards to go do this, this, and this. It's temporary, but still. This is why I will never run for public office, people. I don't know how long I would be able to stay in a room with individuals just throwing mud at each other without having an outburst and just calling everybody out in the way that would end any political career I ever even thought of having before it began. It might not end well, but on the other hand, it might be worth it just to go out with an epic speech of burning down my own political establishment here in my own state, go out in a blaze of glory. Sounds fun, but no. No. Nope. I'll stay being a big fish in a little pond, thank you. Keep doing my workshops and going to meetings and things. Don't want to deal with the rest of it. Anyways, citizenship documentation requirements for temporary assistance were not changed by the Deficit Reduction Act of 2005. Temporary assistance benefits may only be granted to either a citizen or a qualified alien as defined in Title 8, Section 1641 of the United States Code, and certain qualified aliens are ineligible for 5 years from their date of entry. Citizenship and alien status are declared on the application. No further actions are required to verify citizenship status for self-declared citizens applying for temporary assistance. You know what that means? What that means, folks, is they're not using Medicaid to fund temporary health care for illegal aliens. What you have are state programs funded through not federal but state taxes